What's going on, everybody? It's Patrick here. So in this video, I'm gonna be sharing you 3 of my top secrets when it comes to mastering selling over the phone. This is gonna work especially if you're someone who has to do a lot of cold calling, or if you're someone who also has to sell as an account executive and be the one actually closing the deals. Either way, these tips are going to be timeless. And before we get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and let's go ahead and dive in. So the first tip that I have for you guys is that when it comes to selling, when it's cold calling or you're just talking to someone over the phone, it's all about your tonality. So how you sound when you say the words and how you actually use that to make the customer or the potential customer feel like they like you more. So to give you an example of how powerful tonality is, I'm gonna say the same sentence in a couple different ways, and you're gonna see just the difference in the meaning depending on what words I emphasize and my tonality. Listen very carefully to my tonality. They picked me. They picked me. They picked me. They picked me. As you can see, I said the same line in a couple different times, and depending on what words I emphasize, depending on what tonality I decide to use and what words I emphasize, created a whole different meaning, right? If I said, they picked me, I'm emphasizing they. Or if I said, they picked me, tonality, now it's a question, oh my God, why would they pick me out of all people, right? And so that's just a little example to illustrate that, when you're saying your words, understand tonality is such an important thing. In a lot of my cold call videos, I usually like to say, hey John, how's it going? And a lot of people in the comments are saying, oh, that doesn't work. Oh, I tried this and this doesn't work. The reality is it does work because I've done it so many times and I've seen other people do it so many times, especially when I worked at Oracle. So 100% does work. I've seen it a million times. The issue that most people have is that they don't know how to make it work for them because they're not able to use tonality to their advantage to persuade the customer to kind of like them just from how they sound, right? So if you say, hey John, how you doing? Well, no one's going to be receptive to you, right? Or if you say like, hey John, how are you doing today? Well, you're kind of nervous. It's like, dude, don't waste my time, right? But if you say, hey John, how's it going? This is Patrick, how you doing today? Okay, then you'd be like, I'm doing good, what's up? And then you go into your cold call, right? So tonality is the name of the game. It's not what you say, it is how you say it. And you wanna make sure that you adjust your tonality to different situations, and it depends on where you're at in the meeting, right? So let's say you're negotiating on price and you understand that the client, a potential client, really wants to move forward with your service, but maybe your price is very expensive and you don't want to lower it, but they really want to work with you, but they feel like they're taking a major risk to do that. So in that situation, what I would do is I would take a calm approach and be like, hey John, I totally understand that this, it definitely is stretching your budget. And then I would just go into like why I think he should buy my products and services, right? But you see, like I calm my voice down and I'm speaking like this and I'm making sure the other person is comfortable with everything that I'm saying. So always be mindful of what the situation is. Be mindful of how the prospect is feeling, right? Do they want to be talked to calmly? Do they need a little push over the edge so that they can actually move forward? Do they need to just get like a slap in the face and just be like, okay, I'm gonna do it, right? Depending on your read on the customer's emotion, you want to just adjust your tonality appropriately. This one is a very powerful trick, and really it's just mirroring words. It really affects the person subconsciously. They don't even realize you're doing it, which is why it's so powerful, right? So when you're talking to a prospect and you understand that they're using certain language to make the other person feel like you are just like them, and people like people who are just like them, right? And the important part is like, you just copy the words that they say. Now, people might say, or speculators or who, people looking at this might be like, oh, that doesn't work. It's so obvious that you're copying their language. It doesn't feel natural, right? Yeah, if you're not doing it right, your tonality is weird and it doesn't feel like you understand the culture, of course, it's not gonna work. But then if you make it work and you use the words that the prospect says and you do it in the same tonality that they speak in, then it's very likely to work, right? So let's say you're talking to a younger entrepreneur who's like 21 years old and he's very successful, right? If that person says, hey, what's up, Patrick? It would be okay for you to say, hey, what's up, Mike? Right? But if you're very stiff and let's say you are very old-fashioned and you've been in the sales game for a long time, and then you're not really sure how to act when a 20-year-old said, what's up, right? And you're trying to sell something to them, and then you're just like, hello, sir, my name is John, or something, right? It just doesn't quite fit. And in another situation where let's say you're going to sell to executives at larger Fortune 100 companies, right? Probably doesn't make sense to say what's up, because unless the other person says what's up to you, you're probably gonna be like, hey, how you doing, John, right? And you'd probably be more like, a little bit more on the formal side versus like, hey, what's up? Using the same exact word is one way to do it. Other ways to do it is just re-summarizing what somebody says. So if somebody says like, what we're looking to do is we're looking to decrease our costs and increase our revenue using software, for example, right? And then when I, want to repeat exactly what the person said, and I'll be like, okay, John, so from my understanding, you guys really want to decrease your costs and increase your revenue using our software. Is that right? And like, it sounds so simple, but by just repeating what somebody says, it doesn't have to be word for word. It could be summarizing what they say or putting in keywords that they mention. It just makes the person feel like, oh wow, this guy really gets me. The more people feel like they understand you, the more likely they are to buy your products and services. So not only does it influence a person subconsciously to want to like you a little bit more, but you also make sure you're on the same page, right? By just repeating things to them, like you want to get it done on this day, you want it to get done at this price, is that right, John? And they'll be like, yep, that's exactly right. And so they're being heard, and that's really a big human need. And honestly, in everyday regular life, most people don't feel like other people listen to them. So when you're the person that actually listens, who actually cares and actually wants to help the customer go from point A to point B, well, people are a lot more receptive to whatever it is that you have to sell. And this is a really great way to not sound salesy because it's not fake, it's not inauthentic, right? There are tactics and techniques that you can execute on, but it doesn't mean it's fake. I think the most important part is understanding where your attention comes from. If your attention is to actually help the other person, then use all the techniques you want, because at the end of the day, this person is going to benefit by buying your product and service. And if you truly, truly, truly believe that from the bottom of your heart, then it's an easy sell. So the next phone tip that we have for you is setting clear expectations for what will happen at the end of the call. So a lot of people at the end of the call, they're not very clear on what's gonna be next, right? So they'll just be like, okay, I'll send you a quote. Cool, bye, right? And then maybe like if I was a salesperson, I sent the quote, I have no idea if what's the next step? Is there a decision-making process? When this person is going to get back to me? Are they gonna sign the deal or not? And I'm just kind of sitting and waiting on my hands, right? And then if I have to call them and be like, hey John, I sent you the contract like a week ago. I just wanna see how you're doing. Like, okay, but it's kind of annoying at some point, right? And then a lot of salespeople, when this happens to them, they don't wanna make that call because they don't wanna be too annoying and too needy. So what do you need to do to prevent this so that you can earn the permission to call them whenever you want and you're extremely clear on what the next step is? All you gotta do is, it's basically called a firm future commitment. There's many different words for it, but all you're doing is just setting up the expectations of what will happen after the call, right? So if I was at the end of the call, let's say I was selling the software, I would say, all right, Daniel, I'm gonna go ahead and send you the contract. And from my understanding, you are going to check it over with your manager. Is that right? Daniel says, yeah, that sounds about right. And I would say, okay, well, when do you think you're gonna have a conversation with your manager? He's like, well, probably on Monday. Okay, great, on Monday. And by Monday after that, do you think you guys would be ready to move forward with the decision, or do you need more time after that? They might say, okay, after I talk to my boss, maybe we need 2 more days. Okay, so that's Wednesday. Okay, great. So by Wednesday, is it fair for me to expect that you would get back to me, whether it's an email or a phone call? Is that right? And they would say, yeah, okay, great. And just in case you get a little busy or things change, do you mind if I go ahead and give you a call on Thursday if I don't hear from you on Wednesday, just to make sure everything's all right and just to make sure I can answer any questions that you may have? Is that cool with you? And they're gonna be like, yeah, that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. Okay, so what am I doing here? I'm setting expectations of what will happen next. I'm getting the decision-making process. I'm getting the timeline, right? If I did not ask these questions, I'm literally just waiting for this person to call me back. And what if they never call me back, right? And that's the annoying part. So what I do instead, I say, okay, what exactly needs to happen at your company in order for the deal to move forward? You need to talk it over with your manager. Great. And then this needs to happen. Great. When are you gonna call me back? Wednesday. Great. If you don't call me back, here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna call you on Thursday. And you said yes because you gave me permission to call you on Thursday. So when I call you, you're gonna know exactly why. So once you set those expectations, you can basically, you get the person to agree to them. Once you get them to agree, you can do it and you won't sound like a needy salesperson. But the key is to ask all these questions and get everything clear at the end of that sales call. If you don't do that, if you don't do a good job, selling later on is going to be much more difficult. And understand that every single time you talk to a potential customer, you always need to do it again and again and again. It's not that you just do it on the first call and you never do it again. Every single time you need to know what is the next step, exactly what needs to happen at your company, exactly what needs to happen on their company, so that every piece moves along until the deal finally closes. And so those are gonna be some of my top tips when it comes to selling over the phone. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.